cobble together some golf courses that he was buying out of bankruptcy. He had just pushed his siblings to sell all of their father's real estate interests, which was against their father's will, to get himself a couple $100 million. And then Mark Burnett, this revolutionary television producer from the UK, came over and decided to create this show. He had been a great success with Survivor, and he wanted to do something where he could be in the United States, closer to his kids. And so he had the idea of doing Survivor in the city. And that's how he found Donald Trump. And in doing that, he completely remade Donald Trump. They had to create a fake boardroom and Trump Tower that looked like a sort of uber powerful person because the real offices were not in great shape. And they created this 2-minute introduction to the show that I still think is one of the greatest political ads ever created, where it made Donald Trump look like the king of New York City, of the whole Northeast. Everything he did was successful and covered in gold. And he had this story that he had had some hard times, but he had fought his way back bigly. And that repeated week after week, and with just little snippets of Donald Trump in a boardroom looking decisive and important, had a big impact. We also talked to producers who said they edited out all the parts where he seemed incoherent and didn't make sense. They would just reinvent a show to make his decision look logical. But that was a very powerful thing, repeated week after week after week, sometimes in episodes that went on for 2 hours, that reinforced that image of him for millions of Americans.
What lessons do you think he has learned from that experience of sort of displaying wealth and power and his repeated experiences of going to the verge of bankruptcy and back? Do you think he has taken away key lessons from those experiences?
It's very difficult to look at someone and judge them conclusively, but it's also really hard to find growth in Donald Trump's life. He seems to make the same sort of judgment calls over and over again. All of those business problems that caused him difficulties throughout his life, he makes the same kind of problems over and over again, which is not listening to people around him who say that's not the right way to go. He just fires them, which is not listening to people who have subject matter expertise in the area. He just ignores them and sometimes sues them to cause them more problems. And then when the predictable outcome arrives, he blames somebody else, oftentimes throughout his life, saying people are out to get me just because I'm Donald Trump. He started saying that before he was 30 years old. So those kind of things just repeat. And I think he actually believes now that people have been out to get him, that he's had a difficult life and the world has not been a fair place to him. It's hard to reconcile with a guy who's gotten $1 billion for being born and being on television, but that's a big, big part of who he is.
He's now back in the White House, and he is now demonstrably very interested in Bitcoin and the crypto industry. How long of a tail is there to that? Is this a long-running interest he's had, or do you see this as something he's picked up more recently?
This is brand spanking new. He had been a crypto detractor through at least 2021, the last time he really said anything about it, when he said that it was, sort of funny money and it was all a big scam. But sometime in the spring last year, some crypto enthusiasts got to him and said, we have people who support this who will give to your campaign. We have people who support this who will support you if you ease up on regulations, and they will vote for you in large numbers. And they arranged for him to speak at a Bitcoin conference hosted by something called Bitcoin Magazine last July, where he said he wanted to fire the chairman of the SEC his first day in office. That drew, much to his surprise, a huge round of applause. He didn't even know people knew who that person was. And so he said it again, and he got even greater applause. And as soon as they got into basing policy on that and raising campaign money from that, again, this is just last summer, they started trying to create businesses that they could personally profit from. They started rolling those out in September. But again, neither his sons, Eric and Don Jr., who have been involved in his business, nor Mr. Trump himself had ever made any public comments in support of cryptocurrencies that I could find before